I went 13 days without a single bowel movement. And I was on Miralax for 11 of them. So almost 2 weeks not being able to go to the bathroom because
Yeah.
we've got to think about it like a toilet. Like you don't want to just go into a bathroom, see a clogged toilet and be like, you know what, I'm going to use it anyways and see what happens. Like
Mhm.
nobody does that. So the
No.
same thing happens in your body. If you have like a clogged drainage toilet and you just start dumping a bunch of toxins into that system, something's going to go wrong and something's going to break.
Yeah.
Because if you just start throwing a bunch of like L-glutamine, aloe, all those gut healing herbs into a system that has parasites and fungus constantly destroying the gut lining, it's not going to do anything. It's like taking like a water gun and trying to put out a forest fire. That's essentially what you're doing.
Welcome to the Hope Natural Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Erin Ellis, your host. On this show, we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life.
Today I have Dr. Kate Davis on the show, and I think her story is going to stop a lot of you in your tracks. Dr. Kate is a doctor of chiropractic with a background in functional neurology and microbiology, and she specializes in helping people with chronic gut issues finally find the root cause after years of trying everything and getting nowhere. What makes her perspective so valuable is that she has lived this herself. She was a former Division I athlete, seemingly healthy, when she developed severe gut issues in chiropractic school. She was offered drugs with permanent side effects or surgery. She chose neither. What she found instead, after years of her own investigation, was that chronic infections, parasites, mold, toxicity, and drainage dysfunction were at the root of everything. She passed a 3-foot parasite. I will let that sink in for a minute. The point is, she understands what it means to do all the right things on the surface and still feel terrible. And she has built her entire practice around finding what's actually driving that, not just managing it. Dr. Kate, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Erin. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. So before we dive in, give us a little bit more background on your story and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely touched on most of it. So, but yeah, it really just started in my early 20s. I was 24 and started getting really severe constipation, bloating issues. I mean, I went 13 days without a single bowel movement, and I was on Miralax for 11 of them. So almost 2 weeks not being able to go to the bathroom. And it didn't make sense to me, like you said in the intro, like I was young, I was healthy, I was a former D1 athlete. I didn't look like someone who would have severe health issues. And I was really blessed enough, like after I went to the MD and they gave me those two terrible options, I was really blessed to be able to find someone, who actually knew what they were doing and was able to help me. And so I found this chiropractor who had a huge background in massage and myofascial release, which is basically just very gentle massage, over the fascia, which is that tissue that covers muscles and organs. And he did some abdominal work on me. And I swear that night I lost like 10 pounds. It was the first time I was able to go to the bathroom in 2 weeks. I mean, I felt like a brand new person. And then after that, like I overhauled my diet completely. I went paleo, gluten-free, dairy-free, all the stuff that people recommend you try initially for gut issues. Mm-hmm. And I thought I was good. I was like, well, as long as I avoid dairy and gluten forever, I'll be okay. And so I did that for about a decade, which is really hard, when people want to go out to eat to have to avoid those foods. And, as long as I stayed away from them, I was completely fine. But anytime I strayed even a little bit, all the symptoms would come back. And then I had a really stressful life event that triggered all those symptoms to come back, regardless of my diet and any supplements I was taking. And, luckily my friend was in town and she's like, Kate, we got to do some testing. And she found the parasites. I also had mold toxicity, leaky gut, gallbladder dysfunction, fungal overgrowth, like all sorts of stuff going on. But it was really those chronic infections and toxins that nobody else had picked up on, in those 10 years of trying to figure out what the heck was going on. That was the underlying issue for me. And once I, removed that 3-footer, once that sucker came out, I started going to the bathroom, 2 to 3 times a day, sometimes 4 times a day. And I was like, I didn't even know this was possible. and 4 months in, I felt 100% better. I was able to eat dairy again, able to eat gluten, and my whole life was changed. And so from then on out, I just went full force into functional medicine. And, since then I've been able to help hundreds of women just really get over those chronic gut issues like bloating, constipation, and IBS.
Wow. What a story. 3 feet.
3-footer. It was gigantic. I mean, I was like, where was this living in my body? It looked like a small snake. It was disgusting.
Do you have any idea where you might have picked it up?
No, everyone always asks me that, and I'm honestly just like, I have no idea. I mean, I'd gone to, multiple countries, when I
Mhm.
was a teenager. I was born in Europe and my parents traveled a lot, so who knows? I could have picked up something
Yeah.
anywhere, in the Caribbean or who
You
knows?
just fed it and it just grew and it just loved your little gut so much.
Yeah. I don't even know where it was growing. I'm like, "How is there enough space in my abdomen for this?" And I had hundreds of
Right.
parasites come out. That was just the biggest one, was that 3-footer, but there were hundreds, all different shapes and sizes, liver flukes, intestinal flukes, little tiny ones that looked like sesame seeds. Like, it was wild.
Wow. Well, parasite cleanses and parasites are, a hot topic, and
Mhm.
you talk about people jumping straight to parasite cleanses, and I get asked this all the time, or even like
Mhm.
heavy metal detoxes, or detoxes of any sort without
Yeah.
really preparing their body first. So can you explain like what actually happens physiologically when someone does that, and why might it actually send them to the ER?
Yeah, it's such a great question because you're right, it is such a trending topic, and yeah, I'm sure as a naturopath you get that question all the time,
Yeah.
but it's so dangerous, especially for parasites, because when you just start killing them off with herbs and binders and whatever you're using, they actually release a bunch of toxins into your body. So you'll get what's called die-off symptoms or Herxing reaction, detox reaction, whatever you wanna call it, but if your body doesn't have the ability to naturally get rid of waste and toxins from your body, if you don't have good functioning liver, gallbladder, and gut, if you can't eliminate waste properly, if you're not pooping every day, if you have leaky gut, if you've got a sluggish gallbladder, a liver that's overwhelmed and backed up and not really detoxing effectively, then all those toxins are going to get dumped into your system and it's going to start overflowing and things are going to start going wrong. And I've heard so many people who are just like, yeah, I ended up with migraines or headaches, or I ended up going to the ER. Like, I've heard that from multiple people because they had, a gallbladder attack or severe stomach pain or something crazy that happened because they didn't understand this concept of healing and opening up drainage pathways before killing off infections. Because, like,
Yeah.
we've gotta have think about it like a toilet, like, you don't wanna just go into a bathroom, see a clogged toilet, and be like, "You know what? I'm gonna use it anyways and see what happens."
Mhm.
Like, nobody does that. So, the
No.
same thing happens in your body. If you have, like, a clogged drainage toilet and you just start dumping a bunch of toxins into that system, something's gonna go wrong and something's gonna break. And so that's really the biggest reason why you don't wanna just jump on a cleanse without fully knowing what's going on in your body.
Yeah, and you mentioned, drainage pathways. So let's dive a little bit more into that, and what does that actually really mean? And why do most gut healing protocols or things you might just get off the internet or from like a social media post, skip this part entirely?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those detoxes, especially on social media, they're very short, very quick, very easy. We live in a society of quick fixes, and so obviously that's gonna be, the sexiest thing for people to see online is like, "Ooh, a quick fix, a quick parasite
Mhm.
cleanse or gut cleanse." But in reality, if you truly wanna heal yourself and get to the root cause, like all the root causes, not just one, of what's causing the issue, it's gonna take time. So first of all, like
Mhm.
a quick fix is not gonna be the answer. And with drainage, what that means is your gut is the primary way that toxins and waste products get out of your body through your fecal matter. So you should be pooping 2 to 3 times a day. Unless you're on a carnivore diet, then 1 time a day is usually pretty good. But if you're not pooping twice a day, you're constipated. Like most gut doctors are just like, yeah, you should be going 2, 3 times a day, especially if you're eating plants and,
Mhm.
fruit and lots of fiber and things like that. Like, your body has to get rid of that. But also waste products that your cells produce on a daily basis, they have to go somewhere. And they all get dumped into, your lymphatic system pulls them out of your organs. They get dumped into the bloodstream. Your liver is the first pit stop that's supposed to pull those toxins out, break them down, and send them to your gallbladders, and then that's gonna send it to your gut, and then it should go out the toilet, and that's, like, the normal way that toxins get out. And a lot of people will say, "Well, I already have a liver, I already have kidneys, my body already detoxes." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're correct, but is it functioning at 100% or is it functioning at 40%?" Because over
Mhm.
time, those toxins are gonna build and build and build until you go over your threshold, and now all of a sudden things start going wrong in the body. Well, now you get toxins that are getting backed up in the liver, getting backed up in the lymphatic system, and eventually they'll get backed up around the brain, and you end up with brain fog and migraines and headaches, or they'll get backed up in the lymphatic system and you get swelling and can't lose weight and you get all this like water weight in your body. And so it really is just focusing on, okay, is my liver functioning well? Is my gallbladder functioning well? Is my gut functioning well? And do I have a solid, good gut lining, or do I have leaky gut that we have to fix first before going after all this other stuff? And so that's what I look at is, are you pooping 2-3 times a day? And then there's all sorts of symptoms that can tell you if you have gallbladder dysfunction, like bloating in the upper abdomen or acid reflux. Typically, I'm thinking gallbladder, constipation, because your gallbladder, stimulates that peristalsis motion in your gut that allows you to go to the bathroom. So there's all sorts of symptoms you can kind of pick up on as a clinician. And then with liver dysfunction, you can see a little bit of that on blood work. And then there's a lot of symptoms that tell you that, like hormone dysregulation. If you've got high estrogen and other things going on, I'm immediately thinking liver. If you've got low vitamin D, because that's where vitamin D is converted, I'm thinking liver dysfunction. So there's all these little things that you kind of pick up on. And then you can kind of gear the care plan for that patient towards, okay, you've got leaky gut and liver issues. We're going to really, and that might be removing gut first to allow it to heal, or removing mold, or whatever else kind of pops up on testing. And then slowly going through those drainage pathways before doing any sort of systemic detox.
So important.
Mm-hmm.
So say someone's, saw stuff on social media, they think they have something going on with their gut. They started like this gut healing protocol. You talk a lot in your marketing about expensive pee. And I say that too. So people spend, hundreds, thousands of dollars on gut health supplements and they're really not actually absorbing. So what are some signs that, they might be on some sort of gut healing protocol, but it's not working? And what would be the reason behind that?
Yeah, I think it depends on, what they're doing, right? It's because a lot of people jump on protocols blindly, but they've never done any testing to figure out what the heck they're going after. Like a gut cleanse sounds, fun and healthy, but what is it actually doing? Do you have leaky gut, and do you need to heal up that leaky gut first? Do you have infections that you need to remove? So basically when I say like people have expensive pee, it's really just a lot of people's first thing to go to is, okay, I did some nutrient testing and I have all these nutrients I'm deficient in. So I'm just going to start taking all these vitamins and these amino acids and these antioxidants and just, assume that's going to fix my problem. But my question is, well, why are you deficient in the first place? Can you actually digest your food properly? Do you have good liver function and good gallbladder function to break down your food and enough stomach acid to do so? And then number 2, can you actually absorb those nutrients once they hit your gut lining? Because if you can't do either of those, and you're just popping a bunch of pills and hoping for the best every day with all those supplements, they're just going right through you, and you might be absorbing like 10% of it instead of, 80 to 90%. And so that's where I talk about, expensive pee and expensive poop. If you don't heal up the gut lining first to where you can actually absorb nutrients, food and supplements probably aren't going to help you, and you're probably not going to feel any better trying those routes first. And that's what happened to me. I tried diet, tried so many supplements. I had like a graveyard of supplements in my kitchen cabinets, and so many people spend hundreds of dollars every month on all this stuff that just makes them feel like, okay, but it's not really moving the needle forward. They're reliant on them. They're not really getting any better. And it's really cool to see, okay, when we get to the foundation of let's restore these drainage pathways, let's remove the infections, remove the toxins, allow your body to do what it does best and naturally heal itself. Now, all of a sudden, you don't need all these supplements. You save all this money every month, not spending, $300 on supplements. And now you can actually use food as medicine and lifestyle changes to really just keep your body healthy and not reliant on those supplements.
Yeah. So what I heard for you for gut healing, like if someone, wanted gut healing instead of taking all the supplements, we need to figure out the reason why the gut got to where it is in the first place, remove what I like to call the obstacle to cure, and then work on the pathways and all of that, and then heal the gut, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because if you just start throwing a bunch of like L-glutamine, aloe, all those gut healing herbs into a system that has parasites and fungus constantly destroying the gut lining, it's not going to do anything. It's like, it's like taking, like a water gun and trying to put out a forest fire. That's essentially what you're doing. And then wondering why it's not working and you're not getting any results, so.
Right. How effective, or what are your thoughts on stool testing for, or parasitology testing?
Yeah. So stool tests, a lot of people don't know this, but most of the time they show false negatives. And what that means is you get a test done. It says, oh, you don't have parasites. And then you just go on with the rest of your life thinking, oh, no, I'm good. I don't have a parasite infection. That happened to me. It's happened to dozens of my patients. And they're really, really difficult to pick up on because parasites don't just live in your gut. I mean, most of the time you kind of find them there, but if they're anywhere else in the body, they're never going to show up on a stool test or a blood test or anything like that. And so they're really sneaky. They're hard to pick up on. Stool tests most of the time won't show you that you have parasites. Oftentimes you have to go off of symptoms and health history and like, where they've traveled in the world. If someone says like, oh yeah, I used to go to Thailand or I lived in Thailand for a while or South America, I'm like, okay, probably a high likelihood that you have parasites, but they're so difficult to pick up on. The only test that I found, now I do find a lot of value in stool testing. I think it can show you a lot of different things. Like, do you have leaky gut? It'll show you, zonulin protein levels. If they're really elevated, that can be a huge sign of that leaky gut. It shows you if you have fungal overgrowth or viruses on some of them. So it can be a really beneficial tool to see, is there dysbiosis or an overgrowth of bad bacteria in the gut? Is there fungal overgrowth, viruses, all that? But with parasites, the best test that I found, the only one that ever picked up on them in me, and a lot of those patients who'd had stool tests done before, was actually a hair follicle test from Cell Wellbeing. I don't know if you know that company, but they're really good at picking up on parasites. So it's pretty wild.
How is that?
Yeah, I mean, I know I don't know the exact mechanism because it's way more complicated in like the physics realm than I know. But
Yeah.
I think the idea is that, I mean, if you think about it, hair is the gold standard for drug testing, right? Because it stores all these toxins your body's been exposed to. So I think they just look at it as, your hair is like the first thing to go when your health is really messed up because it's not an essential thing for your body to survive. And so it tells you a lot about your overall health. When people's hair gets dry and wispy or really oily, or it starts falling out or it grays, that tells us a lot of different things about their internal health. And so they've developed this test that can actually pick up on, parasites and mold and, nutrient deficiencies and all that stuff. And it's pretty awesome. But that's the best test I found for parasites, where people come in, they're like, no, I've done multiple stool tests, I don't have parasites. The hair scan picks it up. We start detoxing and they see all these like ropeworms come out and they're like, oh, I guess I did have parasites. And I'm just like, but I mean, it's still tricky, right? Like there is no perfect test for them. So you've really got to go based on, a lot of it is like symptoms and, good detective work as a clinician and just looking at their health history, what they're dealing with. And just in a lot of people, you kind of just have to assume, I think there's some gut parasites going on. So I'm going to just put you on mimosa pudica seed or whatever, antiparasitic you use. And we're just going to see what happens and see if some come out. And most people actually have them, which is kind of crazy.
So even the 3-day stool tests aren't even that accurate if you collect over 3 days.
I mean, they're more accurate than like the single one. Yeah. Because I just did the single stool sample collection when because the chiropractor who fixed me initially, he was like, Kate, I'm 95% sure you have parasites. You need to go see a naturopath. But because my stool test came back negative, I never listened to him. I was like, no, this test said I didn't have them. I'm good. And, because you just believe that all tests are infallible and they're 100% accurate, but they're not. And so yeah, it's a really easily missed infection.
Does the hair follicle test, does it just say you have parasites, or does it identify what it is?
No, it just tells you that you have them. Yeah. So it's not as detailed. So that's like the benefit of doing like a gut zoomer or a total tox burden test from, like Vibrant Wellness or GI Map, is that you'll see the exact type of bacteria and fungus and virus and things like that. Versus, the test just tells you have them. But, at the end of the day, for most people, it doesn't really matter because if you just put them on the right binders and herbs, you're going to see them disappear on testing anyways. So, and then if they don't, then I do like the more detailed one and say, okay, let's figure out what kind of fungus is going on in there and try to treat it a little bit differently. So,
I mean, they say if you have a heartbeat, you have a parasite. So
that's what a lot of people, they say like the 2-finger test, right? Just put it on the carotid. Yeah. And not everyone's affected the same way, right? Because most people have really good, solid immune system function and they're able to, and good good stomach acid, good gallbladder function. So they can kill off these infections that are in their food very effectively and get them out of their system. And their immune system's active enough to where even if something slips by those 2 barriers, it's not going to overgrow in the body. And so that's why it's really important to look at the whole picture, get rid of all the infections, all the toxins, so the body can fully heal and the immune system can fully come back online. So now you can naturally get rid of this stuff without needing a bunch of detox products, like every year. and that's kind of the goal, is like get to that true healing of the organs and then lifestyle changes to maintain those results, like better quality food and better sleep and down regulating your nervous system, because life is stressful and it's always going to be stressful and we got to learn how to manage it properly.
Well, that segues into the next part with stress in the gut. So I mean, I see this all the time in my patients. I'm sure you do too with stress, and they're doing everything right on paper, but the gut piece like just won't really resolve. And it's likely due to chronic stress. So what's the connection between chronic stress and why gut healing stalls?
Yeah, it's if you look at research, so a lot of people will say, they'll go to their doctor and say, "Oh, I think I have leaky gut." And they're like, "Leaky gut doesn't exist." If you look at research, it'll just say increased intestinal permeability. That's what you look
Mhm.
for if you want to research this stuff, you guys. We just say leaky gut because it's easier and it's not, 9 syllables long. So, but if you look at research, chronic stress over a long period of time has been shown to create leaky gut. And what that is a breakdown of that gut barrier, where we have normal little holes in our gut to allow nutrients from our food to go to our bloodstream and get distributed throughout the body. But we don't want giant holes in that gut, because now you get infections and large proteins in your food and toxins slipping back into the bloodstream and creating a huge issue. So leaky gut is number one. If you're chronically stressed, your gut can't fully heal. You can't get rid of that leaky gut state. And when you're in a state of leaky gut, that means your gut is inflamed. And usually you've broken down so many layers of the intestines that now you have an inability to absorb nutrients properly. So we've got to fix that leaky gut to get those little, like the inside of your gut kind of looks like a shag rug with those little microvilli that, absorb nutrients and bring good stuff into your body. And we've got to restore that. So if you don't ever address the chronic stress piece, you're probably not going to fully heal. Even if you're getting getting rid of all the right infections and all the toxins, if you don't learn how to manage that, it's never going to fully heal, just because that is such a huge trigger for leaky gut, which is also the precursor for autoimmune disease. So there's just a whole, cascade event that happens if you don't address that piece. But then more than that too, stress affects every part of your body, right? Like it's going to have so many negative effects on your health. It can really mess with your hormones, because cortisol, your stress hormone, is one of the master hormones in the body. So it basically controls, like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all those other things. So it can really, affect you at a hormonal level, which can also trigger some gut issues. And it's just so intertwined with so many different systems. And that's why I love, naturopathy and functional medicine, and just looking at the whole body as one piece instead of just dissecting it into different functions. So I think there's just so many different things, but those are probably the top two that come to mind.
Yeah. Would you say, I mean, most, I'm going to say most, I would say, well, I guess more than average patients have, leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability. Does that make you more susceptible to parasitic infection?
I would think so, because what is it?
Yeah.
About 80% of your immune system lives in the gut.
Yeah.
So any sort of gut inflammation is going to depress your immune
Right.
system. And so is stress. That's another piece of it, right? Like
Yep.
stress and your immune system function like a seesaw. When
Mhm.
stress goes up, your immune system tanks. So if you want your immune system to fully go back online and you want to heal up that leaky gut, you've got to address the stress piece as well.
Yeah. I forgot to ask you a question about or just kind of back with the testing. How often do you see parasitic infection coupled with mold?
Ooh, coupled with mold? Not very often, but I've
Oh,
been
really?
hearing that
Okay.
a lot. I've been hearing that a lot lately, where people are finding that mold and parasites kind of work
Yeah, I was
together
just
in the
curious.
body. Yeah, I mean, I had parasites and mold, so that was very
Yeah.
common for me. But I'd say a lot of people I work with, because they have chronic gut issues, usually I'm seeing fungal infections or parasitic infections or really severe gallbladder dysfunction. That's usually a
Mhm.
big one for constipation. But yeah, I don't see parasites and mold together very often, but it definitely does happen.
Okay. So if someone's listening right now and they might have like irritable bowel, gut stuff,
Mhm.
bloating,
Yeah.
constipation, maybe the stuff going on for years, nothing's worked. What's the most important thing they need to understand before they just go try another protocol?
Yeah. Number one, if you're not assessing, you're guessing. So go get some testing done, because if you're just trying protocol after protocol after protocol, like you're just wasting time and money, and you're probably going to end
Mhm.
up worse off than you were before that specific protocol.
Yeah.
And also, if you're going on a generic protocol, you're going to get generic results. You've got to go to someone who's going to individualize your care plan.
Mhm.
I'm not going to put someone on a parasite cleanse if they don't have parasites, or I don't
Mhm.
suspect they have parasites. I'm not going to put someone on a a heavy metal detox if no heavy metals show up on testing? You know, if you do a urine test and there's no heavy metals, why would you put someone on a heavy metal detox? That's just silly. And so a lot of people, they go out and they see these things on, you know, online, and they're like, oh, everyone has heavy metals and parasites, I'm just going to buy that detox and try it out, without first testing to see if that's even what you're going after. Like, what if you have mold toxicity and liver dysfunction and really high chronic stress, and you're just going after mold? It's like you're completely missing the mark and wondering why you're not getting better. And so we've got to get, you know, past this mindset of I'm just going to do a quick fix and try to figure it out on my own. Save yourself the time, save yourself the money, go see someone like you or myself who can actually really get to the root cause and figure out, you know, a full picture of what's going on, like not just infections and toxins, but also those drainage organs like liver function, gallbladder function, gut function. Do you have leaky gut? What are your nutrient deficiencies? Like, how's your nutrient profile? A full blood panel, not just the yearly blood work that shows you practically nothing, you know, and then put all those pieces together, because insulin resistance can also create a lot of these issues, you know, like, and so you got to look at the whole picture. And then you tackle each of those different problems in a really individualized way for each person to actually get them long-lasting results. And so that's probably the number one thing I would say is go get testing done. Don't just guess and hope for the best, because you're probably not going to see results.
I think I say that all the time. My patients know that. It's on my wall, test, don't guess. And why I love testing, because I mean, your body's connected. And even, you know, you said like it could be, you know, hormone dysfunction. And what's interesting with like blood sugar and things like that, like if you have that, that's actually like feeding some of these things. Like it's feeding, you know, if you have blood sugar, like guess what? These critters like sugar. Yeast like sugar. So candida likes sugar. It's like you're actually feeding it. So that could be like your underlying, you know, cause of whatever's going on. And, you know, stop throwing darts at the situation. It's like, you know, I have patients all the time. They're like, well, what do you think about this? Well, why are we doing it? Like, what makes you think that you need that? Well, I just heard about it on social media, or, you know, a friend did it and they said they passed, you know, tons of things. I'm like, okay, well, we can talk about it, but I'm just curious why you think you need that.
Yeah. I think it's just, you know, it's a trending topic, and that's why, and I talk about it the most on my page because that was my experience. And I'm like, okay, you guys, this was me. I did testing. I went on an individualized care plan. I didn't just like buy some random parasite cleanse and start it. Like I worked with a doctor who knew what they were doing. And in 4 months, I felt 100% better. And those symptoms haven't come back. And like, if they do start to creep back in, I know exactly what it is. I'm like, oh, I didn't prioritize sleep. I've been really stressed lately. Let me do some grounding and some breathing and maybe go for an ocean swim to like calm my nervous system down. You know, it's like you pick up on all these things and then you start to know your body better, and you can like feel when something's off, and you're like, oh, maybe I just ate a little too much cheese yesterday. Maybe I should cool it on the cheddar, you know, and just simple things like that. But you can fully heal. You've just got to really get a good picture of what's going on in the body. And so it's so important. Like I always tell people, like you said, when the patients come in and say, well, what about this thing? That's kind of like putting a blindfold on and having someone spin you around and then throwing a dart and thinking that you're going to hit the bullseye. So you're just shooting in the dark. You don't know what's going on. And also like your health history is a huge piece of the puzzle that clinicians can ask you 5 different questions about a certain aspect of your health and know exactly what's going on versus you trying to figure it out yourself. And so like get someone to help you shortcut the process. It just makes life so much easier.
Yeah, true that. So what, speaking of social media, you know, it could help us and hurt us. What's the gut health myth circulating on social media right now that makes your blood boil and is very concerning?
I'd say the number one thing, because it could be multiple of these, is here's the one solution for XYZ gut issue. This one product will heal all bloating or all constipation or all acid reflux. Like if you ever see someone saying there's one solution for this one problem, just run in the other direction. That's not accurate. I mean, and it's so sad because, because we're in America. And so our whole lives, we've been trained. You go to the doctor, they diagnose you with something. There's one drug, one solution, one treatment for this issue. And so everyone just thinks that that's how health works. And we have to basically decondition people and help them relearn like, no, that's not how the body heals. The body needs a lot of support. There's all these different systems that we need to fix. And so I always tell people like who come to me with hormone issues, you know, like they have gut issues and they also have Hashimoto's or some other sort of hormone dysfunction. I always tell them, if you don't prioritize your sleep, your hormones are never going to heal. We're starting there. the detox is going to help you. But if you don't prioritize going to bed earlier and not going to bed at 2 or 3 in the morning, your
Yeah.
hormones are never your hormones are never going to get fixed. And so, but those little things that, you know, you get from somebody who's been doing this for years, you're not going to really find that on the internet typically. Now, there are some people who are just amazing researchers and they know so much. By the time they get to me, I'm like, wow, you actually know a lot of this stuff. That's awesome. But, you know, it took them like a decade to get to that point to learn all this stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. So true. There's no pill for your, I mean, well, that's conventional medicine, pill for your ill, right?
Yep.
Take this, it's going to solve all your problems. But hey, if there's that magic thing that's going to solve everything, that we'd be rich.
Yeah. Like, what are the top 3 for gut issues? Oh, have you tried colostrum? Have you tried a probiotic? Have you tried bone broth? And like, yeah, bone broth, absolutely go for it. That stuff's amazing. It's natural food, you know, but it's not going to heal the problem if you have parasites or if you have mold toxins or if you have heavy metals that are damaging your gut lining. It's going to help support the healing after that. You know, after we've removed all that stuff, then I'm like, hey, have you ever cooked bone broth at home? Here's a recipe on how to do it. Go buy some bones, find a good butcher, and start drinking a little bit of this stuff like every day to help support that process. But yeah, if you're just starting with probiotics, it's like everyone's number one recommendation. Most people who come to me are like, the first thing I tried was a probiotic and I felt way worse. And I'm like, yeah, because you have SIBO, or an overgrowth of bacteria in the gut, and you just poured an atom bomb of more bacteria into your gut. And who knows if it was bacteria your body actually needs, because a lot of these lab made probiotics, well, do those actually exist in our food? Like, have we been eating those for thousands of years? Does it actually make up our microbiome, or is it just a random compilation of bacteria, and what's the quality of it? And so then you get into this whole discussion with them of, well, where'd you buy it? Amazon? Okay, yeah. Well, first of all, don't ever buy supplements on Amazon. Start there. And then if you have SIBO, the last thing you need is a probiotic. No, we got to balance out the bacteria first. And then let's maybe start with some foods like sauerkraut or kombucha or something that's a little more natural and less likely to just, you know, throw off your whole gut microbiome. So those are probably the top 3 I hear a lot.
Oh,
colostrum.
yeah. I agree. Yeah, for sure. That's why you need to work with someone that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the internet.
Yeah. Although the internet can be really helpful, but most of the time it causes more harm than good, honestly.
Use the internet to find someone to help you.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
Instead of the help that you need, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'll wrap this up. We could probably keep jamming on this forever, but we'll wrap up with one question I ask all my podcast guests. What would be your best or favorite health tip that you could share with the audience?
Ooh, that's good. Honestly, just for me, because it's helped me the most. I really love breathing and grounding. And if you can just do that every single day, like, your nervous system is going to be so chill, like, all the time. Because life happens, right? Like, we get these stressful life events, or you go to a different stage in life, or maybe now you have kids, or, you know, you lose your job, or something happens that you're just unexpected, like a death in the family. You've got to have these tools to keep your body from going in a state of distress that eventually leads to disease if you don't manage it properly. And so if you just do like 10 to 20 minutes of grounding every day, where you just stick your feet in the grass and the dirt and the sand, and just, you know, just hang out outside, you can stack your breathing on it, do some habit stacking. That is a great way to just regulate your nervous system. And there's also a lot of benefits to grounding, like, you know, unsticking your blood and making you less likely to have blood clots and decreasing inflammation in the body. But another one too is just basic breathing exercise. If you do what's called exhalation focused breathing, where I like to do like a box breathing with exhalation focus, there's a lot of neurological benefits for this in terms of putting you in that rest and digest state and out of that fight or flight state, which obviously for my patients is really helpful because I work with gut issues. So I want them to be in that rest and digest state and not, you know, in that chronic fight or flight in the brain. But if you just do 4 seconds in, hold for 4, breathe out for 8. So you're breathing out twice as long as you breathe in, and then hold for 4. And you just do that box breath for about 3 to 5 minutes every single day. You're going to notice a huge change in just how you feel internally and your overall stress levels. So if you learn how to really manage stress in a healthy way, it's really going to benefit you, you know, overall in the long term. So that would probably be my best health advice to start with.
Love that. Thank you for sharing. Well, Dr. Kate, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'm pretty sure anyone who listens to this has learned something about gut, parasites, you name it. We'll make sure to have all of her information linked in the show notes. You can follow her on social media, go to her website. But is there anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, if you're someone who's listening to this and you've been struggling for a really long time, like I get that. I went almost a decade with all these issues thinking that, oh, well, this is just the rest of my life. I guess I'll just never eat bread and dairy ever again. Just know like there is hope for you. Like you're
Mhm.
not stuck this way. I don't care how many doctors you've been
Yeah.
to, functional doctors or Western doctors. There is someone who can figure out what's going on with you, who can get you back on the right track. So don't ever lose hope. And just know that healing is possible.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for being on the show, and we will see you all again next week. Take care.